Praise be to Jesus. Well, hello again, everyone. Well, I've been sitting here thinking about the grand jury report and the video I just posted right before this one here. And I thought, well, how do you figure out who's telling the truth? I mean, where's the truth here? Is it all just all made up and it's just a big smoke screen to persecute the Catholic Church and to cause trouble for the church in America? Or, does it have substance to it? So actually, what I did was I thought of three ways that would be sort of pointers or ways in which we would get an idea of really whether what the grand jury report says, whether it really has any substance or not. And of course, we can't do that right now. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Excuse me a minute while I cough. Okay. All right. Well, the first way is if this grand jury report just sort of like dies away, or if indictments come out of this grand jury report. All right. So if the Attorney General in Pennsylvania actually issues indictments, then we could be pretty sure that he believes he must have somewhat of a case. I don't think he would issue indictments under false pretenses with no possibility, of it like getting thrown out of court, because that would be embarrassing and that would hurt his political career. So I think that's one way to tell to see if the indictments actually happen. All right. The next thing is I think the other states. Now, I had said something before on one of the videos that other states were thinking about doing this. And in fact, one state, Nebraska, actually, the church, the Catholic Church in Nebraska, and the Attorney General asked people that may have knowledge of or were victims of clerical sexual abuse to come forward. Now, I haven't heard of any other states doing that. My sense is that probably they're waiting to see what's going to happen with the Pennsylvania report and whether indictments happen. All right. So, because nobody wants to jump the gun. This kind of effort is really a big deal. I mean, it's expensive. It takes time. It takes a lot of effort and work to look into all this. So I don't think other states are just gonna, be foolish and then just jump in. So they're probably waiting for, I would think, the to see what happens in Pennsylvania with the Pennsylvania grand jury report. The other thing is that there was some mention, I mentioned this on one of the videos, that the federal government, the Attorney General, was looking at indictments for a violation of RICO laws. Now, I don't know exactly what they are, but I think they have to do with like interstate trafficking of criminals and, this sort of thing. So I would think that the federal government is, looking into all this, and we'll see in the future whether they think they have any basis, any factual information that will stand up in court to pursue indictments. So I think all this is good. I think eventually truth will come out. Now if Pennsylvania doesn't really do anything and this whole thing just dies, I think we can, sort of assume that there's a bunch of hot air in this and it was just all a matter of persecuting the church. Although I wouldn't go so far as to think that there's no truth in it at all. It's just that, perhaps by the nature of the way things were done, trying to prove some of these things, which Mr. Shapiro seemed to think that he had proof that Cardinal Wuerl was lying. I mean, he made the statement, he is not telling the truth. So, I mean, I would think that if he believes he can prove that in a court of law, I would think that he would follow it up. I really do. I think he would, take whatever opportunity he has to persecute or prosecute and also persecute the church to whatever extent he's capable of doing without putting his neck on the line or his political career on the line. So I think these are the three things that I thought of that we could look forward to seeing how they develop. And well, we'll just have to wait and see. I would like to thank the priest I was talking to. I'm not going to mention his name. That's not important, nor would I think he would want me to mention his name. But he is on the channel. I think he's still on the channel anyway. You know, he was a little upset with me that I seem to be being one-sided, and I took what he said to heart. And so, we need to, or I need to, be more careful. I don't really want to bring, false words into this or any other of my videos. I know I'm always inserting my own opinion, and I'm allowed to do that. But at the same time, even with your own opinion, you need to be careful. Unless you're just really absolutely sure about something. And when are we ever really sure about anything? So we should always temper our comments. And I'd like to thank him for taking the time to type out all what he did. I haven't read it all yet, but when I have time, because I have other responsibilities. I work for a Catholic ministry, and I need a couple hours a day to pray and just to, do the regular kinds of things that people do every day. And, I'm on the other parts of social media. So, I don't want to use that as an excuse for, anything I say or do. Another comment had to do with, apparently, I think it's a woman. She didn't, she suggested that with this news briefs that I put up. See, I just seemed overwhelmed at the time, and I thought, oh man, you got to make a video out of each one of these, and I thought I would just do a news brief. I really see my job as not analyzing each story because, if I get into too much analysis of it, in terms of my own personal analysis, I try to stick with what, I read paragraphs out of the story itself mostly. And then when I make my own comments, I think those are pretty obvious. What she wanted me to do was to spend more time analyzing the story and then presenting it. And this can be, some of these accounts of what's happened here are really pretty complicated, and I'd have to sit down and study it and sort of, compose a short analysis of it. And I don't really feel like, that's really my calling. I believe my calling is to just like give you the information. It's up to you to, say, well, I'm interested in reading more of that, or, I'm not particularly interested in this. And, you always need to keep in mind that these are just headlines. How much truth is in them is sometimes hard to tell. All of this, all of what's going on in the church, even with the Pope and the cardinals and, the division in the church, all this is very emotionally charged, and we all have very strong feelings. And the sites that I use are Orthodox sites, so they have a certain way of looking at things, okay? If you would go over to the more mainstream Catholic media sites, you would see, a different take on things. Um, they're basically very supportive of the Pope, and I'm not going to start going down that down that road in this video anyway. So if we keep these three things in mind here, this is what I'm going to keep in mind. And again, always try to keep in mind like the big picture, like what's really behind all this, what's driving it, where does one agenda want to take it, where does another agenda want to take it. These are the important things to keep in mind. We can't, we need to analyze things for ourselves in terms of a big picture and not just look at headlines and think that, I think most of us are smart enough to know that, you just can't read a headline and believe exactly what it says. They always say, there's two sides to a story, and sometimes there's even more than that. So, I'm trying to caution myself, so that I do a good job for you. And I want to caution you to be careful about, what you believe just offhand. I think we all feel like, there are some very, very serious problems in the church, not only with sexual abuse, but with the changing of doctrine, with some priests and cardinals and bishops support, what we'll just call the homosexual agenda in the church. Um, there are problems with this whole concept of the primacy of conscience being abused by people so that they decide what's sin or not, instead of the way it used to be, which is sin, and it's up to God to judge your culpability. But now some people seem to think that what's being allowed is that you can determine whether there's any culpability or not. In other words, you determine whether, if what used to be what you used to think was a sin, maybe for you in your particular circumstances isn't a sin anymore. Of course, people call this situation ethics and relativism, and this has been condemned by the church. So there are a lot of issues here, and they're all very emotionally charged. We all have very strong feelings, and I want myself and to you to be particularly vigilant when you come to this channel, and keep these things in mind here. I mean, we're all not going to agree all the time. I allow people to disagree, as long as you do so appropriately. The way, think about how Jesus wants you to respond. You can disagree, but don't be nasty about it. Or you could say, you think that I'm wrong in the way, my opinion on this. I mean, that's fine. I mean, it's just my opinion. I mean, all our opinions have value. All right. So, I mean, this is the way that we, work through these things and sort of put together in our minds and our hearts what it is we believe. And in the end, your behavior, what you say and do every day, very much comes from what you believe. And so, when you're on this channel, you're developing or you're reinforcing your beliefs about one thing or another, about different changes in the church, or questioning maybe there's something you used to believe that maybe you don't believe anymore. And just realize that, your beliefs very much determine who you are and the way you act and speak and think. And, this is very profound because this is what's going to determine your eternal salvation. Not, because God is going to judge you on your actions and what you do. And if your actions come from what you believe and you're developing your beliefs based on material, in part, on material on this channel, then we all need to be very careful. So I thank this priest again for bringing a lot of information to my attention, and I hope he stays on the channel and he speaks, regularly to not only myself when I seem to get out of line, but he helps other people on the channel, which I've already seen that he's doing that. So I hope he's still here, because he was a little upset with me, and I pray to God that he still is, because we need people like him. We need knowledgeable people on the channel so that we can help one another. Well, there's a 16-minute video on my behalf, so I'll let you go now. Enjoy your afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you are, and we'll talk to you next time.